11 ways to repurpose your content for social media and beyond, basically, so you can get more from it. And here's the reason why. So, well, let me tell you a little bit about myself first, actually. So, I'm the content marketing manager at StreamYard. I'm also the host of the longest social media marketing talk show called Social Chatter. We're up to 289 episodes. We do it once a week. I also run an Amazon live show called Business Essentials and Conversation. Also, the host of a podcast if you want to learn about live video called Launch Your Live. And then I also have a digital agency. So, as you can see, I'm pretty busy there. And the thing I want to just impress upon you is this. So, this is crazy. 7.5 million blog posts are being published every single day. That's a lot of content. Now, on top of that, we're talking about social media content. We're talking about live streaming, blog posts, audio. So audio in the form of podcasts. Now people are using Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces, email. So all of this content now. So this is all being pushed out. And on average, adults are spending this blows my mind, 8 hours a day roughly consuming digital content. That's crazy. That's a 15% increase over the previous year here. And when you think about it, okay, you sleep 8 hours a day, that gives you 8 hours of content consumption, and then you're working 8 hours a day. That leaves little time for anything else. And that's not just for you, that's for every single person. I don't know how many of you get, the notifications on your phone. They'll tell you, how much time you spent on your phone. And I like to look at those and I like to see, well, oh, I spent, 10% less. Because did it feel like 10% less or did it feel like, I spent 30% more? So, I like to look at that because the thing is we have so much, just a small amount of time. So what we have to do here is, the bottom line is there's just simply a lot of content being pumped out there. Everybody thinks, oh, let's just get on the bandwagon. Your corporate CEO saying, hey, you know what? We want you to be blogging. We want you to be on social media. We want you to be creating stories content. Like the thing is, though, it's just simply too much content. We got this fire hose and we're just like putting it out there, right? And it's all going out there on the internet. And then they're asking for metrics and they're like, you know what? Nobody's actually like viewing the content, but they still want you to keep pumping it out, right? Because, well, eventually it's going to catch on. And the thing is, we just have to be smarter with how we are working. So working smarter, not harder. And so what I want to do today is I'm going to talk to you about how you can get more from less. So we're basically taking that orange, for example, and we're squeezing as much juice out of it as we possibly can. We're not we're not trying to go for volume. We're trying to go for quality over quantity. And so what I want to do now is I want to first start off by talking about investing. And you're like, well, hey, this is a presentation on content and social media. Why are you talking about investing? And the reason I'm talking about investing is because when you don't have a lot of time to produce this content, by the way, that's not even factored in the content consumption, by the way, 8 hours to, consume content, 8 hours to sleep, and 8 hours to do work. A lot of times we're also then trying to do all this other stuff. So the thing I want to recommend is to make a couple of investments up front. So for example, it's great that you want to produce that blog post or that podcast or that live video, but I want you to work smarter with how you're producing that. And I'm going to completely recommend just a couple of pieces of equipment. The first thing would be, an audio mixer. So this is a Rodecaster Pro. Zoom makes one called a PodTrack P8. These are fantastic products. And here's the reason why. What this does is this is something you can plug directly into your computer, but it lets you plug in this case, 4 microphones. But the benefit here is that this thing it can be powered by a power outlet. It can be powered by a battery, for example. So it's portable as well, but it has some really cool features. All those colored buttons you see there, you know what they do? When you push one of them, you can apply an audio clip. So let's say you want to make a podcast. Instead of, hey, let's get everybody together and then let's record it and then let's edit it after the fact, we can do all of this while we are doing the initial recording. So for example, this device, it allows you to record directly to a memory card. And you can push, for example, you record intro, you push the red button, record an intro. You can then do your podcast and you push the orange button, for example. And then when you're finished, it's done. You should not have to actually go back and do do editing. Everything pretty much is saved as one file. And then you're ready to go. You can push that out on your favorite podcast platform. So make sure you make these investments up front. This audio equipment, super important. The other thing also, there's an app here. It's called Reincubate Camo. For those of you, I see a lot of people using webcams on their laptops. If you're going to be doing live video or recording courses or any of that kind of stuff, a couple of things you want to make sure you pay attention to there are, to upgrade your webcam. And you don't have to go buy a real expensive camera, for example. You can use your smartphone. This can actually be paired with that Re-Incubate Camo app. It basically converts this into a high quality camera that will mirror this camera that I'm using right now. So make sure you make those investments up front. The investments are going to be super important because now I want to talk about 11 ways that you can repurpose your content. So I'm going to start with live video here. Live video. For those of you who say, hey, I don't have anything to stream about, for example, you've got to find something you're passionate about. And we know, obviously, what's the key thing that people like to do right now. A lot of people like to be on camera. They like to watch videos. So if you're a business and you're like, we're going to sit there and write blog post content. Your audience, though, or pretty much everyone on the internet is saying, hey, we want to watch video. We want multimedia over written content. I'm not saying don't do written content, but I'm saying let's start with a live video. And there's lots of ways that you can tap into live video. The first thing is to make sure you get yourself a piece of software that will allow you to work smarter. And I'll recommend. I work for StreamYard. I will recommend StreamYard. It's something I've used for my own show for the longest time. But I will recommend that product. And the reason I will do that is because it's a live streaming platform. It has a really cool feature, and it's called multi-streaming, where I can, instead of broadcast just to Facebook, I can broadcast to Facebook. I can broadcast to LinkedIn Live, Twitter. I can also go out to YouTube, for example, and I only broadcast once. So it's broadcast once, simulcast. So now all my content is being pushed out to those social media channels. You don't have to ask your team, hey, make a video and then let's download it and then we're going to upload it to other platforms. Do it all at once. That's the first way I'd repurpose my content. I work smarter. So you can tap into that for your live video. So takeaway is find something that you're passionate about and just start making live content. However, you want to make sure you're keeping this in mind. Every live video you do needs to have a purpose. It needs to have a purpose because you want to make sure that the people who are going to watch it are understanding what your video is going to be about. They're not going to watch it if it's just the title of your business or the title of your show or just your name. It needs to have a purpose. So for example, like this session has a purpose. It's got a topic that I'm talking about. Your live video needs to have the same thing. So start with the live streaming software that will multi-stream. And then also I recommend using a tool like TubeBuddy to go along with that. Supplementing that because it will actually help you do that optimization and get your YouTube content in front of the right audience by picking the right keywords, and the right phrasing that people are looking for. Okay, so once that video is finished, and here's the reason why, by the way, I recommended the equipment at the beginning, because the next thing I would recommend doing with that live video is to turn it into live audio. Now, what a lot of people do is they'll do that live video, for example, and then they're like, oh, I'm done. I'm not going to communicate with people anymore. However, the next phase that people have moved into is they're watching live video and then they actually want to connect with the business should be connecting with their customers. And a great way you can do that is to do live audio. And we're talking about services like Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, Facebook just came out with a whole slew of audio tools, for example. So you want to definitely check those out in terms of using live audio. Now, for live audio, my tip here is going to be treat it like an after party. You don't want to just spend, an hour of time doing a live video and then, hey, let's also go on, live audio and do an after party for like 2 hours and make yourself available. You want to make it exclusive. And the reason is because, well, let's think about like celebrities, or famous people, for example. What do? So they're in movies, for example, but then they go on talk shows, for example, to promote things. But then what they also do is they go on, for example, and they'll do a partnership with a company for a product, but they're not doing like 100 products. So they're very exclusive about where they give their time. And you as a business, you need to treat the same thing, in yours as well. So for example, say, I'm going to do live audio. This checks that box. But you need to be exclusive and say something to the effect of like, hey, I'm going to do 30 minutes of live audio after my live video. And that's going to have actually a really good ripple effect because people who are watching your live video, they're going to likely want to stick around for that live audio. And the benefit here is it's going to allow you to connect with your customers, and your customers or your audience, anyone tuning in, they are going to be interested because they feel like they're connected with you, even though it's only for that 30 minutes. So you want to be very exclusive with how much time you spend with any of these products. So live audio, that's the next thing. And like I said, you don't have to do a lot of it, just do 30 minutes, but make sure, you give back to your customers, because it'll pay off in spades as they feel more connected with you. Okay. Third way, you remember I talked about that, that Rodecaster Pro at the beginning. Well, if you want to turn a podcast or you want to turn a live video into a podcast, you can use that hardware that I mentioned. So here's the way I would do it. I would start my live stream, and then you can physically record at the same time while you're doing the live stream. So, for example, you start your live stream, you're streaming it out to all these different platforms. All you can do is hit that record button on that hardware. Or if you're using that software like StreamYard, for example, you can download the audio files as well. But the benefit here is that you're actually doing a live video. You're then converting it into a podcast just by hitting that record button, and it's saving a file with all of just your audio. And now you have an instant podcast. You can put it up on your favorite podcasting platform. Now, a couple of tips here, by the way, for those of you who want to really tap into podcasting. The challenge with podcasting is that if you don't have an audience, and most podcasts don't, it's great that you can be out on Spotify and Apple Music and Apple Podcast and Amazon Music and Google Play. However, if you don't have an audience, you have to build that audience to get people to download your podcast. Yeah, it's out there, but there's also a ton of other podcasts. So a couple of smart ways that you can do this. For starters, I recommend, as you saw earlier, I recommend getting a Rodecaster Pro, using your live streaming software, and then I use a host called Captivate. Now, the reason I do this is because what Captivate's going to do is they're going to give me every single episode of my podcast and a website just by hosting my files with them. So they basically, when you have that package together, all you have to do is upload your file, and then it puts it onto a website. So that's a way to work smarter, not harder. You're not going to have to go, over to another website. All your episodes are going to be embedded on your podcast host site. Now, the other thing, though, I think you need to keep in mind here is with podcasting, you have to be smart about who you bring on. You need to be a good host, but you also want to be strategic about who you bring on. And here's the reason why. Because if you have a podcast, you have nobody tuning into that podcast because they don't know about it, for example, how do you take bigger leaps? One of those is by inviting guests that have a large audience. So as a good host, you would be strategic about bringing on the right people on your podcast. However, you also want to bring on the people that are going to have the larger audiences and invite them. For example, when your podcast goes out, send them a link to it. Hey, would love it. Thanks a lot for being on the podcast. Would love it if you'd help us share this out. So this way, you've got that mutual benefit there because, you've already had the person on. Chances are they're going to share it. And then that's going to allow you to get more exposure. So don't just have anyone that you can think of on your podcast. Be smart about who you invite on your podcast, because it's going to allow you to get that podcast out on the web a lot faster than it is if you have somebody that has, maybe an audience of like 50 to 100 people. So just keep that in mind. So podcasting, turn your live video into a podcast. Okay. So for those of you who happen to have any sort of Amazon product, whether it's an Echo or an Alexa, they've got the Dot, for example, you can record, while you're doing this, by the way, a 5 to 7 minute flash briefing. And this is a really great way for you to repurpose your content. So I'll take a live show as an example. A live show might be a very lengthy product. However, what you can do with an Alexa flash briefing is you can get introduced to millions of people. And this is because Alexa flash briefings are owned by Amazon. So when you create an Alexa flash briefing, it's simply this. It's a summary of something. It's you talking for 5 to 7 minutes. Now, the benefit here is that these short audio snippets that are available pretty much around the world. Like you can have your flash briefings available in like the UK, in India, in Italy, in all these other countries. And the benefit here is that you don't even need an Amazon Echo Dot. You tap into everyone who's got a smartphone. So Amazon has an Alexa app. You can simply download that. And the other benefit to using these flash briefings is that they actually will show up in Amazon's product catalog. So then this way, if somebody's looking for your business, they're looking for you, actually now have a presence on Amazon as well. So you're able to reach a whole lot more people than you would, again, if you just put your product out on the web and hoped that people would come across and find it. Okay, so let me see. Speaking of Amazon, by the way, I do want to. This is one of my favorite new products that Amazon is offering. And here's the thing: if you want to get into live streaming, and or you've been doing it, and you're like, I'm not making any revenue from this. Amazon Live is a fantastic product to generate revenue, and the reason is this: you can instantly reach a warm audience just by starting an Amazon Live show. And I'm going to give you an example. I run a show. It's called Business Essentials Live. And I started off just a friend, and we had zero audience. And all we did was start our show on Amazon. The first episode we had, I think 1,500 views on it. This is just by we didn't do any promotion either. We literally just started on Amazon. So with an Amazon Live show, we started on there, and we're now reaching 30 to 50,000 people per episode. We've been doing it for I think the last 6 months or so. But and the thing is, it's the way that this is happening is because when you do a live show on Amazon, what's happening is it's actually getting put on every single product page. So for example, if you're a company, let's say you're a dentist, for example, and you want to you want to actually start an Amazon Live show. It could be about teaching people about teeth or something like that, right? You have products that can show up in the carousel on the bottom of your video. And the great thing about it is anybody that buys. So you could be talking about toothpaste. You could be interviewing other doctors, for example. You could be talking about toothbrushes. You could be talking about flossing, any of that kind of stuff that is related to what you want to, you're already an expert in the industry. You can easily generate revenue for your business. So definitely check out Amazon Lives. If you're somebody who wants to do live video, but you're like, hey, you know what? There's a time commitment, but I don't know what the payoff's going to be. This is going to get you that instant warm audience. So love using Amazon Live. And I don't use it very often. I just go live a couple of times a week. I cap my time. So I say, you know what? I want to make sure I'm on Amazon 30 minutes, maybe 1 hour. And then, I've got the next episode scheduled for later in the week, but I'm not actually creating more content. I'm taking all that original content I've already been doing, and I'm just recreating it on Amazon. Okay. So how many of you have a YouTube channel? Chances are you watch YouTube videos. You want to tap into a YouTube channel. One of the great ways to do that, obviously, is to start with that live video, but not everything needs to be live video. So for example, if you're putting together a tutorial, or an infomercial or something like that for your customer that you want to actually, get in front of more people, start recording some of those videos. And you can use there's tons of products that do this, by the way. Again, I'm going to use the same examples earlier. You can use StreamYard, you can use Vidnami, you can use your smartphone. It doesn't really matter. Somebody just need to record a video and then put that up on YouTube. Now, the benefits here is that you're not actually recreating, you're not creating content from scratch. That's the problem that people are making. They're creating new content thinking, I just need to turn that fire hose on and I need to just push more content out there. The thing is, you just need to take one really good piece of content and need to be breaking it down for all these different pieces. And then you just need to let them sit and saturate the market with the right kind of content versus, hey, I'm going to put 100 pieces out there and one of them will work, put out a really good piece of content. So in this case, take the questions, for example, that you get from your customers, whether they're your customer support team, whether they're questions you got on that live video in that Clubhouse audio room, for example, and start to create content around those questions. So you're going to never run out of content. Always have questions from your customers. So make sure you go and, some of them you might say, well, you know what, I'm going to turn that one into a live video because that's what works best for that answer. Hey, you know what, I'm going to make a pre-recorded video for some of it because that works best for that kind of content. So we're not creating brand new content. We're just simply taking the questions our customers are already giving us, and we're building one piece of content and then making, in this case, 11 different things out of it. Okay. So I mentioned earlier, blogging. A lot of people, say, well, blogging, why should I be blogging? Like if everybody's watching videos, everybody's listening to audio, listening to live audio, because Google still likes blogging. They still like written content. And the thing is, the other thing also, by the way, for those of you who just put your content out on social media, that's not the right thing to do. Because here's the thing, you don't own really anything you put out on social media for the most part. You put something out on social media. Well, let's say something like, I'll give you an example. Just this past week, Facebook ran into an issue with their platform where people were not able to go live. And for somebody who had planned out all their product launch on Facebook, that wreaked havoc across those customers. And so the downside here was that, well, at that point, they have no way to actually like get their content out there because it was affecting Facebook, it was affecting Zoom, it was affecting every product that touched Facebook. And if that's where your audience is at, you're in trouble. So the benefit by using blogging is that you want to be building something on your own website. You can take all these other things we're creating, the live streams, the pre-recorded videos, the podcast, all that stuff can be built on your own land, i.e., your website domain, your host, your website. So all that information can go on there. The benefit here is that you then own that content versus, yeah, social media is easy, but you're not actually building as something you own. It's kind of like buying a house versus renting a house or renting an apartment, for example, or a condo. You're renting something that someone else owns versus in this case, you actually would own that by putting it on your own land. Now, a couple of quick tips here, by the way, some tools that can really help you if you're going to do blogging. Definitely download Yoast SEO, free tool. It can help you with your optimization of your content. So each article you're publishing is targeted at a set of keywords. Very good product. And then the other thing you can also do if you're somebody who's like, hey, you know what? I don't have time to write. Let's take that podcast that we recorded. Let's take that live video. Let's take that pre-recorded video and we can run it through a tool called otter.ai and it will automatically give you a text transcript that you can publish out as a blog. So instead of having to like recreate things and listen to things, it does all of that for you. It's very sophisticated. So the benefit here is that if you're somebody who says, you know what, I don't like to write, I got you covered. Check out otter.ai, run all your files through that. Well, if you're somebody that says, you know what, hey, I don't have time to do it. Super fast products. Like I don't know what keywords to target. Use the Yoast SEO tool. This is going to give you a home base to be building upon and using social to supplement your written content. So to market your content out to your audience. Okay. So speaking of that, you've written some content, you've taken a video, maybe taken a podcast, for example, you've created one piece of content and turn it into many pieces. Another great thing you can do, you got to remember, people aren't always going to be watching your videos or catching your live streams. Some people do like to, read eBooks, for example. And so what you can do here is you can convert your blog posts, your articles, your transcripts. So for example, you created a video on YouTube. YouTube can generate a transcript for you. You can put that into, for example, tools like Designer. And what it will do is it will actually then spit out a PDF for you. So it'll give you an ebook that you can then send out to your customers. So don't be afraid. Don't be like, well, you know what? I've got to now go write a piece of content and I got to create an ebook. You don't have to do all of that. You literally write the content once. You then publish it through a tool. The tool will automatically do the conversion for you. So you're basically, recreating all these different pieces of content without having to actually go through and do each one individually. So super, super, super helpful. Same thing also, if you're somebody who's got written content, you've got videos, maybe you got a series of videos, a great way to get more from all of that content you've been publishing is to turn it into a course. And this could be a free course, it could be a paid course, but it's not something that you need to be like, oh, I need to create a separate course that has brand new information. That's the problem that I think a lot of people run into. They think it needs to be brand new. It does not, because everybody's entering that journey at different points and you're packaging it. It's about packaging it. So how you package that course, whether it's, make sure that information is obviously still relevant, but make sure at the same time that it's, that it's just packaged together. Like you don't have to actually create an entirely separate course because, it's already on YouTube. Turn it into a course. Maybe you add a bonus to it, for example. Maybe you say, hey, if you buy a course from me, that might be some of the other videos, I'll throw in a one-on-one coaching opportunity, for example, or things like that. And some great tools, obviously, to do that. I like to use Kajabi. for that sort of thing because it lets me build many websites that have courses, and it's very easy. It's also got some like you don't have to actually build all the steps. It's all built in that product, so it's designed to be building courses. Another thing I also really like, by the way, is I don't know how many of you like have thought about this, but I really hope you do. Email marketing. Email marketing is still the best way to get in front of your customers, and they have a great feature built in. It's called uh, autoresponders, email autoresponders. And so what you basically do is this: you write, and you could take an article and you could just break it up into 10 separate emails. But I'll give you an example. So instead of going in and composing an email and sending it out to your list, and then a few days later you compose another one and send it out again, what you're doing here is you're spending the time up front. We're writing down, for example, let's say a series of 10 emails. The first email someone is going to get, it's going to be a welcome email. The second one's going to be, who am I? Third one's going to be like, what's the mission of the business? Fourth one might be, here's our social media channels. Fifth one might be, if you have, hey, we have a course that we also sell. Sixth one might be, here's the best way to get in touch with us. So instead of sending out all these emails once, like every single time, what you do is you set up what's called an autoresponder. And the great way this works is you write one series of emails. I put them into my email service, whether it's Aweber or ConvertKit or MailChimp. And then as somebody is joining my email autoresponder, so they're signing up for an email newsletter on my website, when their email goes in, it fires off that first email to them. And then let's say 2 days later, Aaron signs up. So Aaron signs up for that email 2 days later. What's going to happen is the first person is going to be on like the second or third email, and then Aaron's going to be on email one. So you're stacking all of your emails out to your customers. So then let's say, well, you know what? I want to update these emails. I don't have to go and like write brand new things. I just need to go and update the one email in the sequence or add a step to the sequence. And then as you put more people into your funnel, they're going to then start to go down and start to get all the emails that are in your series of emails. And this could be something as simple as like we're doing right now, ways to repurpose your content. Here's an email series, 11 ways to repurpose your content. Email 1 goes out the first day. Hey, here's who I am. Email 2 might be live video. What is live video? Hey, here's some ways you can learn about it. So you can turn all your content into autoresponders. It's literally just writing one series of emails, and then you just put people in, and then they're going to start to get those emails. So great way for you to repurpose your content. You're not creating anything new. You don't need to. You're driving them to all your different properties. Okay, so I think I got maybe one more item here, but social media. Social media is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to come up with new items to post each day. I mean, there's things like stories, for example, and now you've got stories, you've got regular posts on your account, you've got events, you got all these different tools or all this different content you need to be publishing. But the problem with that is that you could literally spend your entire day just going through the motions of getting social media content. You're forgetting all those other pieces of content. You're forgetting your audience, where your audience is actually looking at your content. So for social media, my pro tip is pretty much this. My pro tip is to use two tools. The first one is Lately, and this is a really fascinating tool, by the way. So the way that this tool works is you drop any of your content, whether it's a video, a written piece of content, an audio, for example, whether that's a podcast, a flashbang, anything that's an audio file, you drop it into their product. And here's what they're going to do. They're going to spit out all the content for your social media channels. So this way you're not having to you don't have to spend all your time in Facebook. And then when you're finished, going over to Twitter, for example, and then, oh yeah, I got Instagram and I got YouTube. Like you could spend an entire week just doing social media content, and that doesn't stop. So the way I use it is I put everything into Lately, and then it spits out all these little pieces. And then all I do is just review them. And then the last thing I do is I use a social media dashboard. I go into, it's called Agorapulse. And what it does is it has this queuing feature, this really cool queuing feature. And then I can set up these, basically I like to tell them they're buckets. So I can set up a bucket for, videos and podcast and written content. And all you have to do is set up the times when I want them to go out. And what will happen, I set the schedule. I could say, you know what, at 1, 3, and 5, send out a video. at 2, 4, and 6, send out a link to a podcast. And the way it works then is it pulls, for example, from 1 o'clock, it pulls a video. At 3 o'clock, it pulls another video. At 5 o'clock, it pulls another video. And then it recycles. And then 2, 4, 6, it says, you know what? Hey, go pull from the podcast. It pulls a podcast. And so what I'm basically doing is all this stuff that I'm creating at the beginning, I'm creating one piece of content. I'm breaking it down into all these multiple pieces. I'm then feeding them into Lately, and then I'm scheduling them in my dashboard. And it's literally creating this repurposing effect for me. So this way, I'm not having to come up with, new content every single time. I'm literally just putting in the content that is still relevant and making sure that it's getting recycled properly. So, um, yeah, so that's how I would. That's my tips for repurposing my content, so that I get a lot more from it. I'm not creating, 100 pieces of content. I'm starting with one. I'm starting with really good content. So first thing is, don't think that you need to be creating new content every single time. Put your efforts into creating one really good piece of, and I will say, evergreen content. This is content that is something that can live on throughout the year, for example, or if it's 6 months. And so you create this one piece of content. We're going to then distill as much information as we possibly can. So if it's a live video, we're going to convert it into, we're going to connect with our customers through live audio. So that way they can have that, one-to-one connection with us. We're going to then take the audio from that, turn it into a podcast. We're not having to re-record. We're taking the audio from the live video, turning it into a podcast. Then what we're doing with that is we're running through a transcription service, like an Otter.ai. We're then, either turning that into a blog post from itself, or we're going to maybe, edit it a little bit. And then, we're just going to constantly just distill that down. And then once we've got all these pieces of content written, we're going to put them into our Lately product, which is actually using artificial intelligence to create all these little pieces for us, and then put them in your dashboard, and then just recycle, recycle, recycle. And just think of it like this. You run a piece of content, maybe you run it for like 2 months. And then at the end of 2 months, you're putting in another piece of content, and that's going to have a slight overlap, and you're going to have overlap and overlap and overlap. So now you have all this content going around, keeping you updated on the web. So people are able to see, hey, their social media channels, they're active. But at the same time, like while they're doing that, you're working on maybe that second piece of content, but you're not actually having to so if you focus on the content you create at the beginning, you can work smarter, not harder in this process, and you can get as much value out of that content as you possibly can. At the same time, it's giving you opportunities to engage with your audience. And one thing you have to remember as you're trying to make things, don't focus on trying to be all things to all people, because you can't. You will end up chasing your tail. You'll be, trying to do all of this work, but you're going to get burnt out very quickly. So working smarter there. And then if you do want this deck, by the way, you can just shoot me an email, christian@socialchefs.com. And I'm more than happy to send this over your way. But I want to thank everyone for letting me just talk to you about, ways to repurpose your content. I mean, it's insane the fact that people are spending 8 hours a day consuming content, 8 hours a day sleeping, 8 hours a day doing their day job. That leaves no time for anything else. So you have to be smart about what you're putting out there. It's not about taking the fire hose and just let's put content out there. You need to, be smart about the places you're putting that content, and it doesn't need to be a process. If you make the investments in equipment at the beginning, it's going to significantly help you just get the content out there faster, but also in a smart way. So I think it's time for Q&A, right? Kenneth, you still there?
Can you hear me?
I can. Yes. Yes.
Oh, perfect. So, a question for you. Why,
Yes.
uh, and by the way, everybody, click on the icon with the question mark. Please drop in your questions. Christian will be here for the next 8 hours to questions.
What was your question? You were chopping up.
Sorry, I was saying if anybody has a question, drop in on the bubble on the far left. There's a question icon, and that's where you want to drop in your
Perfect.
questions. So, a don't start where you're talking about. I preach a lot of the same stuff. I loved every bit of this. I know a ton of marketers though who start out writing a blog and want to create a podcast or a video or something else as opposed to working in the reverse order. So I'm
Yep.
just curious, in your opinion, why is it that you feel like they're not doing this?
I think part of it is, so a lot of people are afraid to be on camera. They're afraid to be on camera because, they don't necessarily have an audience that's tuning in to watch their video content, or they don't think they do. But the thing is, you do, because, as you know, most people watch videos nowadays, right? And so,
Mhm.
what a lot of people like, they either say, well, you know what, I don't have the equipment, for example, they don't have the camera, or they don't know what to talk about. And the thing is, you have every single thing that that you're going to talk about. It's just that you just need to do it. That really is what it boils down to. The reason I say, obviously, working in the reverse order here in this case, focusing on the live video and the live audio and the podcasting, and that's because that's what people want right now. Like, the written content is important. You still need to do it, but you want to make sure you're hitting the target as best you can. And if you just, for example, write a piece of content and put it on the web, if you're not good at SEO, for example, or you don't have an engaged audience, no one's ever going to see it, and that's going to be very demoralizing. So that's why I'd recommend starting with some of the tactics that will get you out in front of people, with what they're watching, or what they're consuming.
Yeah, and to the point you were talking about even Clubhouse, but I really equate it more towards video. But
Yep.
Otter AI or Timmy,
Hmm.
just having a conversation and taking either one of those, they work quickly. I've used both of them frequently,
Yeah.
and you can take that and still get the central message of whatever it is you're wanting to talk about on the different channels.
Yeah.
And you got a blog, you got a podcast, you got video. I mean, this is stuff that Gary Vee talks about all the time. It's taking, I think of it this way: it's taking your most robust uh, video content,
Hmm.
and you can strip that down into 50 different versions
Yeah.
for whatever the audience is you're trying to serve. So
Exactly. Yeah. And the big thing is, yeah, a lot of people, I mean, here's the thing, you got to just start. Like, you have to take, if you've got a good idea, you got to just start doing it. And then it's going to snowball. Like, for all the people that say, well, you know what, someone's already doing this. Here's the thing. The reason they're already doing it because they started, and things have snowballed over time. They didn't just like, oh, poof, tomorrow I'm going to write a blog post that's going to reach a ton
yeah,
of people. Some people get lucky with that. But for the most part, you got to just start. If you're not putting the content out there and you're not seeing the results otherwise, like, well, you're not going to if you don't do it. So you need to actually put the time into the project, but you got to make sure you work smarter with that. So,
yeah, and a lot of people have problems doing this on their phone.
yeah.
I think mentally that's part of it, but do it on Zoom and just have a conversation with yourself and record it.
Yeah.
At least
Hmm.
you're sitting down with your own laptop and you're not feeling pressured. You're not on a Zoom. But I mean, this is the new world order of
Definitely.
being
Yeah.
an edge today. So
And I will say this. I mean, if you're somebody who's not comfortable on camera, here's the thing. You can't, this is one thing I would do on social, and it would be to go to like a private Facebook group, for example, or a Facebook page, or an unlisted YouTube video that only you or maybe a couple of your close friends are
mhm.
part of. Go live on there and then ask them for their feedback, and be open with yourself and say, you know what, even if they give me negative feedback and tell me I stink, everybody started somewhere. So, take their feedback and apply that to what you're doing, so that, the more frequent you do it, the more comfortable you're going to feel with it.
I got to lose weight every time I get on video. It reminds me to get closer to my diet. So
Mhm.
I had, as you said, Christian, this was fantastic. Every- and great job.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.